Hello. So this is the start of a little series of discussions about specific spells. In this case, bindings, curses, and hexes. And I'm starting off with bindings because they're relatively simple. And I think to a certain extent, most of us, this is the spell work that we'd probably be most happy using in this category. So why do we need to even know about these things? Because knowledge is power. And even if you choose not to employ any of these spells, as a magical person, it is, for me, I feel, very important that I can recognize when somebody else is doing them. Whether that is towards me or towards somebody else, doesn't matter. For me, I like to be able to recognize that use of energy. So yeah, so bindings, what are they? There's always some time in our lives where we would like somebody to leave us alone. Now, whether that is because they are bullying us or not giving us enough space, say a stalker, or it can be for any amount of reasons that we want to protect ourselves or somebody that we love. We want to have a safe space for them, to have their own personal space protected. So first of all, we do all the mundane things. So if you had somebody that was being bullied, say at school, you would go to the school, you would ask them to join you in protecting. If you had a stalker, then obviously you would go to the police. Brain's gone blank, can't think of any other ideas at the moment. But anyway, you do all the mundane things to protect yourself or your beloved person first. If you then still felt that you needed to do something more, as magical people, we have spells, we have magic. So we can utilize that. And the best way of doing it is sometimes to bind them. You're not restricting them other than you are restricting. So there's always this area, isn't there? You know, is it interfering with their free will? Well, to a certain extent it is, because their free will would mean that they'd want to carry on doing whatever they were doing to you or to your loved one. And you are restricting them because you are going to try and stop them from doing whatever it is that is harmful to you or the other person. So, first thing I did was go to my books. Obviously, love my books. And it is surprising how few people actually discuss this in books. Could just be the books that I've got on my shelf. I have to admit, the books that I found most useful were Rachel's, obviously, and a couple of books from, well, there's a couple of books from an Appalachian witch, and there is another book from a New Orleans hoodoo witch that do mention bits, but not in great detail, which I found quite interesting. Anyway, so I then looked on the internet, and on the internet, oh my goodness, there is so much out there on how to unhex and how to, yeah, so the internet was just a plethora of people putting their two penneth on, some of which was very interesting. Some of it was, oh, now that's interesting. And some of it was, Oh my goodness, really? So I think each to their own, because something you'll see will resonate and you'll think, oh, yes, that's what I need to do. Or other things will be, no. So it is very much, it's a personal thing. So I am going to include a couple of descriptions. This first one is from Rachel's book, her Spells and Charms, and it's a cord binding knot spell. So you need a piece of cord or string. Now, obviously, you can use whichever color you wish. If you know the person's favorite color, you could use that, I suppose, thinking about it. A lot of cord binding spells suggest using black cord or string or thread, or red. That's the other color, black or red. Which, yeah, both of those. Black would be probably my go-to. Red, I would think, would be too inflamed. I'll come to that in a minute. So yeah, for me, if I didn't know the person's favorite color, then I'd probably go for black. So why wouldn't I use red? Because you do not do any of these spells when you are in the heat of emotion. Whatever is happening to you or to your loved one, yes, you are going to be upset. But you do not do these spells in the heat of the moment. You have to calm down. You have to employ those mundane things first. Then, when you are calm and you are looking at it from an objective point of view, that is when you would employ this, which is why I wouldn't tend to use red, but that's just me and my thoughts on using red. But yeah, for any of these spells, you do this in the cool, calm, objective place, not when everything is, and I've got to do this because I've got to. It's got to be done cool, calm, and collected. As much as anything, because your initial thoughts or ideas about what is happening could be spot on. They could be completely way off mark, and it could be that it's just that somebody else happened to be in that same area and it's actually somebody else, or it's got absolutely nothing to do with. And when you actually calm down, you realize that actually that was just a byproduct. It was just an accidental happening. So yeah, you do not do any of these when you are angry, upset. You do it when you are calm. So yeah, you'll need a piece of cord, and if your home is already fully protected and everything, then you don't have to. But if you need to, you can cast a circle, any method that you would normally use, and then you think of what it is that you want to bind, and say in a strong voice, the first knot binds in my intent. The second knot binds ill wishes. The third knot binds it all together. These knots shall hold the spell until these knots are all undone. Doesn't rhyme, doesn't have to. It's say, and as you are saying it, you are putting everything into those knots. So as you speak the first line, my first knot, the first knot is at one end, the second knot is in the middle, and the last knot is at the end. And you visualize as you are tying each of them. Once you've got all your knots done, you just hold it, visualizing that last bit. These knots shall hold the spell until these knots are all undone. Now, I quite like this one because it gives you that power of undoing. Not magic is very, very handy for all sorts of things, but it does mean that it's an easy one to undo, especially if you do it in the heat of the moment and realise that actually you've done it to the wrong person or it shouldn't have been done at all. Now, another very useful one is the freezer binding spell. And for this, you'll need paper, pen, black thread or string, and a small jar or a watertight container. And literally, this can be done to keep somebody away from you. So it's perfect for somebody that keeps invading your personal space for whatever reason. When I was looking this up, and it had all sorts of different bits and pieces, and some people said that it was best done on a full moon. Others said that they like to renew theirs every month if the person is still bothering you. Personally, I do it. I put it in the freezer. I leave it there for as long as I think it needs to be left. And then I undo it or get rid of it or whatever. So the actual thing of doing it is that you write the name of the person on the piece of paper. You write this. Now, I've seen people just write it once in capital letters. I've seen people say that you write it 3 times one way, turn the paper anti-clockwise because you're sending them away. You write it again 3 times, you turn it again, write it 3 times, then you start folding the paper away from you and you write the name again. You could write it as many times as you like, I think. Personally, I would use multiples of 3 because 3 is a magical number. But that, again, is up to you. I've seen it done, as I say, multiple times. I've seen it written that you just write it once. You look at the paper, you visualize the face of the person, you see their face vividly, and then you fold the paper 3 times, as I say, away from you. Tie the paper with the black thread, put it into the watertight container, and then fill that container with water, seal it tight, put it in the back of the freezer where nobody else is going to disturb it. You can say something like, stay here and freeze as long as I please. It's up to you. Or you can just go, you're there, you're frozen. You know, whatever. You can say whatever. It's your intent. It's your spell. When you want to undo it, now I've actually found that this is relatively simple, because if you then take the container out and defrost it, depending on the paper you've used, as you defrost it, the water will actually mush the paper up so that the spell is undone for you as it dissolves. And then you can just discard. I tend to flush it down the toilet. Off you go. If you've used stronger paper and that doesn't happen, then you could tear it into tiny pieces, flush it, throw it in the bin, just get rid of it. It's up to you. But yeah, that's another quite nice one. And then finally, a binding spell for protection. So again, you'd need, it says, when I looked on the internet, a lot of them were saying a photo of the person. Bit tricky. Most of us don't actually print photos anymore. We have them on our phones and on laptops and things. So I think I did see 1 or 2 people say that you could draw a picture and write the name of the person, or again, just write the name of the person. It's up to you. Another way to do it would be if you could get a piece of personal stuff from them, a hair maybe. Difficult again, unless you see their hairbrush lying around, but whatever. Black cord again, photo or representation, whatever you're using of the person. Now, another place that I just popped into my head because I've done a lot of reading around. Somebody used a potato, which I thought was quite amusing, and they scribed the name of the person onto the potato, and then wound the black cord around the potato. So again, because that will rot, and you can bury that somewhere. But yeah. So this spell is used to protect somebody from hurting others as well as themselves. So again, you'd be in your safe space, whether that be a circle or your home, with the cord and the representation. You tell the universe what you are doing and ask that if it's the right thing, that's the energy that is employed. Think about the person that is hurting the others. Let that emotion build, not the anger, but the emotion of the injustice that person is inflicting on others. And then say below the person's name, I bind you from hurting others. And then you repeat that as you wind the cord around them. Repeat it as many times as you want. You can do it in multiples of 3. When you are done, you say something along the lines of, I bind you, person's name, full stop, that's it. I bind you, or I have bound you. Say it how you would normally say it. Make sure that final knot that you have done when you've finished your binding is really, really tight so it won't come undone. And then you put it somewhere in a safe place. If you're using a potato or you're using biodegradable paper, then you could bury it somewhere. I would do it well off your property. You could just throw it in the trash. Or you could just put it somewhere in the dark. I would tend to put it right at the back of a very infrequently used cupboard, say. Right at the back, in the corner. You're out of the way. You're hidden. The one that, if you did it with a potato or paper that rotted, then hopefully as it rotted, so their energy would disperse off somewhere else. Once you feel that the spell is done, if you've got it in the back of a cupboard, obviously you don't want to leave it there forever and ever. So then you could undo it, and as you are undoing it and then disposing of it in the trash or whatever, I mean, you could burn it once you've undone it, but as you were undoing it, you'd say, this spell is done, this person is no longer inflicting the injustice on others, or something along those lines, so that the universe knows that, yeah, the energy's worked, thank you very much, I'm undoing it and getting rid of it. Just my thoughts as I'm whittering along. So you could I like simple, simply because anything that starts getting too complicated, I forget what I'm doing and it could go awry. So I tend to keep things quite simple. But if you wanted to employ more herbs or crystals, in Rachel's book, she does suggest some crystals that you could work with if your intuition says they link to your intention. So she's got agate, alexandrite, amethyst, angelite, diamond, emerald, flint, shark teeth. That would be handy, actually. Garnet, hematite, kunzite, kyanite, obsidian, onyx, opal, and ruby. And herbs that she suggests that might be useful are agrimony, blackthorn, elder, ginger, mullein, nettle, rue, and thistle. In her other one of her other books, The World of Magical Plants, under bindings, she's also got cleavers, cypress, ivy, and knotweed. At the end of the day, use your intuition. Go with what you've got in your cupboard and what shouts to you to use for whatever. Just remember, make sure that you've got the right facts. Do this when you are cool, calm, and collected. And Yeah. Or don't use it at all. As I say, it's knowing so that you can recognize when it's being done, whether that's to you or to somebody else. Bindings, if they're done to you, tend to have a feel to them, which I will come to in the next video when we talk about unbinding. So anyway, I hope this is useful to somebody, and I will see you next time.